Hello everybody and welcome to Apprentice Makers Live. Today we're covering the craft sector and I'd like to thank you all very much for tuning in. I hope you find lots of interest today in the webinar. We've got 4 different speakers, all of whom are approaching apprenticeships from a slightly different angle, and so it's going to be really interesting to hear what they've got to say. Before I introduce the first speaker, I thought it might be useful for you to understand the context of why we're running this webinar today and what it's all about. And so the reason that we're running an Apprentice Makers Live webinar is that we run a site called Apprenticemakers, which is part funded by the National Apprenticeship Service and run by ourselves, SPEDI, which is the Small Firms Enterprise Development Initiative. This is the 5th Apprentice Makers Live webinar that we've run. We've run them in manufacturing and engineering, hairdressing, insurance industries, and we're hoping soon in the next few weeks to run some in design and to cover business admin apprentices. So we've got plenty on the cards as well as the ones we've run already. And those that we've run already are available in the webinar archive of Apprentice Makers. So if you've missed one that you'd like to view, please feel free to take a look at those afterwards. We'll also be recording this webinar today, and so that will be available to view after today as well. So in terms of Apprentice Makers, why does Apprentice Makers exist? The reason Apprentice Makers was put in place was because we wanted to make apprenticeships more accessible to small businesses. The person behind this is Jason Holt, who, if you work in the craft sector, you may have heard of. Jason runs the very successful business Holt's Jewellers, and he was asked by the government to write a report on how to make apprentices more accessible to small businesses, and one of his recommendations was around peer-to-peer mentoring. And so Apprentice Makers was developed to encourage that. So we invite businesses of all sizes to sign up to Apprentice Makers for free and to connect with like-minded businesses and businesses in the same sector or region or same business size to share their knowledge about apprenticeships and how it is worked for their business. So essentially Apprentice Makers is about knowledge sharing, but it's also about potentially working together. So if you really are keen to take on an apprentice and you think it would be useful to work with another business that, that wants to take on a similar apprentice, maybe there's benefit in joining forces and seeing whether that's something that you can do together. Or at least approach a training organisation together to see what it is that you, whether or not you've got commonalities and what you need to do in terms of training of that apprentice. This is what Apprentice Makers looks like today. If you've not had a chance to look, that's Jason Holtz there in the video that's on the home page. You can join the community, it's all free, there's the webinars, there's case studies, there's blogs about apprenticeships, and it's all focused around small businesses and what they can gain from apprenticeships. This gives you an insight into the community area. And this is a map view, so it shows you as people sign up to Apprentice Makers, you can see people, you know, whereabouts people are in the country. And I think this goes beyond the UK as well. So we do have a couple of people signed up from the States and in the world. So take a look and see if there's people there that are of interest to connect with. We have lots of case studies on the site, including a lovely case study from Jane. There in the top left you can see Jane, who's going to be our speaker today. And we also have resources there available for businesses. So we've just launched a brand new guide on the on Apprentice Makers called the Small Business Guide, which takes people through the process of taking on an apprentice. There's stacks of knowledge there around how businesses have worked with training organisations to bring apprentices into their business. Those people that have taken on apprentices in the past can also sign up to the site and complete a really short mentor training programme in order that they can act more as a kind of enterprise mentor for other businesses in the community. So if you're keen to mentor and you like the idea of supporting another small business through this process, it only takes an hour or so, and you can go on and then you can upgrade your profile in Apprentice Makers to Apprentice Maker Plus. So It just shows that you've done some of the mentor training on the site and you're happy to support another business. And something that we're just launching at the moment is that we've started to develop groups. So you can see there we've set up a creative and cultural skills group. So if you have signed up to Apprentice Makers and you want to particularly connect with people in the craft sector, sign up and then we can invite you to join that group. And when you sign up to Apprentice Makers as well, you receive a pack that can help you understand more about what Apprentice Makers is all about and gives some guidance around apprenticeships as well. Okay, so that's just a short bit from me. I'll try to go very quick so that I can hand over to the speakers. We've got some really exciting things to share with us today. But before we get cracking on our first speaker, who is Jane, I just thought it might be useful to get people a bit used to the technology and also get some idea of who we've got tuned in today by asking a couple of questions. So I've got some polls set up. So how this works is I'm going to launch a poll and you do a vote as quick as you can, and then I can share the results with everybody so we can get an idea of who's in the audience. So what I'm going to ask first is around the area that you work in. So because today's focus on craft, I'm asking what craft related area do you work in? So let's launch this and see if we can get to grips with it. Okay, do we have, you can see the answers coming in thick and fast. 3/4 of the people who voted. No more for any more. I think that's it. I think we've got a full house. So I'm going to close the poll and share the results with everybody. So the majority of the audience are makers, which is going to be really interesting because this is something that Jane's going to be talking through today around how she's developed her business as a maker and employing makers. So it's going to be an interesting session, I think. In terms of apprenticeships, I'm now going to ask the next question, which is around whether or not you've set up an apprenticeship program in your business. Okay. Votes coming in. Okay. Great, I'll share the results. So we've got a lot of people that are tuning in today that are just at the point where they're starting to consider it, which is again really interesting, and I think that there's going to be tons of ideas and links to resources, particularly from Daniel and Tracy, that are going to help you take this to the next step today. So that's fantastic. And I'm going to try one more question around your hurdles, what you feel are the hurdles in terms of apprenticeships, because that might help the speakers today address some of those as they're covering their presentations. Okay, 64% of the votes in, just waiting for a couple more. Great, thanks everyone. I'll share the results. Well, there's no real surprises there in that when we've done this poll with other sectors as well, it's a really similar story in terms of people concerned about the management time it might take up and the costs around it. So hopefully we can address some of those concerns today and also answer questions as we go through. If you want to ask a question, you'll notice that in your webinar toolbar, which is on the right-hand side, there is a question bit to it. If you want to ask a question, please just fire them away when you think of them, and I'll save questions for a point in the presentation in which we're able to ask them. So and that might be after all 4 speakers or possibly after Jane's presentation. We can give her a couple of questions, and as we go through we can hand over to the other speakers as well. Okay, so I think now that, let me just check that we've got, we're moving on to the next step. Here we go. So Jane, that was interesting, the poll results. It's going to be, I think what you've got to share today is going to be really useful to everybody that's tuned in. Can you hear me, Jane?
Yes, I can hear you. Morning, Sophie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. And we were just chatting before we started the webinar that you've got a very busy time of year at the moment. So I do really, really appreciate you joining us today. And yeah, so this is your most hectic time of year, I understand.
Yeah, it's huge. I was trying to work out before I came on. I think it's probably around 70% of our annual turnover is done in from, I'd say, the 1st of November right through to December the 23rd. So it's just manic, but it's good manic.
I think that, you know, that's I guess that's what all crafters want to get to, so that they've got their, you know, big peaks in the year where it's all happening really. So I think before we ask you the questions that we've got for you, I thought it might be good to show the lovely video that you produced from Johnny's sister, because that tells a lot of the story and gives us a really good idea of the business. So I'm going to press play and pray that it works. Here we go. Now, having a problem with sound there. Can people hear?
Hi, I'm Jane, and yes, I'm Johnny's sister, and here is the wonderful team. We moved down from London with a family about 10 years ago to the Dorset Somerset borders, which is where I grew up. This is Tosca, and that's big. I'd always wanted to create a business that produced beautiful and unique things that were not readily available in the market nor mass-produced. I also wanted to utilise the sometimes forgotten but wonderful talent of the local community. Surrounded by gorgeous countryside, Johnny's Sisters started back in 2005, although it started just me, there are now 10 of us. Our office is a log cabin, but we're bursting at the seams, so we're converting an existing building into a studio. Our days tend to be hectic, but also lots of fun. We've got a great team of really talented people working for us. Mrs. Bridget making one of our famous love letters. Maybe you have a hand sanitizer involved and not a conveyor belt in sight. That's lovely, Bridget, as always. This is Andy, one of our phone writers, shows how we personalise our enamel work. As you can see, it's not a quick job by any means. In fact, if you make a spelling error, we have to start the whole thing again. Finding time writers is really hard these days, and sadly it's a dying craft, with no signage has now been replaced by vinyl. Communication is important to us, and you'll always receive your love letters beautifully wrapped in tissue. However, we are also big on recycling here, so you might well find your patron arrives in a wine box. Sadly, no wine is included though. Lunch tends to be a relaxed affair in the house or garden, all together before we start again in the afternoon. Which is Debbie, the best tasting in the Southwest, and by far Tosca and Vic's favourite visitor of the day. And that's it. We hope the next time you receive a Johnny Sister product in the post, you will know a little bit more about where it came from.
Wow, well that was lovely. And I don't know about anyone else, but I think I want to work at Johnny's Sister. It just looks fabulous.
Actually, Sophie, I have to tell you that that whole video was made by an apprentice.
It's fantastic, isn't it? What a brilliant resource for the business, and you know, a real testament to how you've set things up over the last 9 years. It's really lovely to watch. And so
that video was taken last year, and I have to say that we've doubled in size. We've actually moved out into other buildings now, and we had a 53% growth last year as well. So it's actually quite nostalgic to watch it. But the ethos is the same. We've just a lot more people and a few more buildings.
Yeah, fantastic. So can you just tell us a bit about Johnny's Sister and when you started the business and why you started the business?
Yeah, well, as you can see, we're an online gift company, and we specialise in personalised products for the home and the family, and we pride ourselves in the fact that we design and manufacture probably around 91% of our total product offering, and we do that here in Somerset. I started it after spending many years abroad and then in London. We moved back down to my home county of Dorset, basically just looking for a better quality of life and more of a balance between work and family. And I think that was in year 2000. I used to work in the IT sector, and as I had to travel quite a bit for the job, I wasn't always at home when the children were small, and I ended up missing lots of important milestones in their life. And so I thought, that's it. And so I have a very patient, understanding husband, and so we just packed up and moved down to Dorset. Had a couple of years not working, really enjoyed it, but I was just missing work, I really was. So I decided to set up Johnny's Sister. Now, I'd love to say I'm really talented in the craft sector. I'm sorry for all those that are listening, I'm not. My love, my passion is actually the business. And I'm a great believer that you're either left-hand brain or sort of right-hand brain. You're either business or craft. And so I'm on the business side, but I love the craft sector. So I tend to buy that in and surround myself by experts in that field. The reason I chose personalised gifts, because I looked over at the States, because I used to live over there, and I used to find that they're about 3 years ahead of us. And most of the things they do over there eventually find their way over here. Their business in personalised products was growing and growing. So I just thought, right, let's do it. As I said, I've no sewing nor craft skills, and I just make sure that I source the most talented craftspeople around. So I guess our USP is a combination of making unique sort of products that found on a high and of course them being British made.
Yes, yeah. And you started to recruit apprentices. When did you recruit your first apprentice, and why an apprentice rather than, well, you obviously recruit local people as well that you found that have experience in terms of crafts, but so how did apprentices start a business?
Right, we recruited our first apprentice in the summer of 2012, and we did it a bit back to front the first time. She was a lovely girl. She'd left school halfway through her A-levels, and she came to us on a temp basis, worked as a packer while she decided what to do. But right away I could see the potential in her, and so I offered her a job, but only on the condition that she went on the apprentice scheme, so that she ended up with some form of qualification rather than just sort of have a job. So I took her along to the college and I said, you run the apprentice scheme, well I've got someone I'd like to put on it. As I said, it's a back to front way of doing it, but it worked out perfectly. She is actually the only apprentice to have left so far, although she was here nearly 2 years. But it's fantastic. She moved up to London and she went straight into a management position. So I mean, that was absolutely fantastic. Regarding recruiting an apprentice rather than an intern, I mean, on the second one, I think it's probably a better way to use her as an example rather than the first one. The second one we did in the normal way, and I guess it was based on the success of the first one that that we went ahead with the apprenticeship. It's great, you get them straight out of school, they're fresh, they're enthusiastic. And probably the biggest thing for us is they carry no baggage, they carry no preconceived ideas or negative ideas about already being on the workforce. By being on a lower wage than they would receive at a regular job means that they're committed to learning and they actually want to be there, and rather than just doing a job because they have to get some money. I love the whole journey of the apprentice, because they come to you fresh out of school or sixth form college, and they often don't have a lot of confidence in the workplace because they might not have worked before, or if they have, maybe they just had a Saturday job. So by the time they qualify, they're confident, knowledgeable, a fully paid up member of the team. And you wouldn't get that with a regular employee, or often even an intern, because interns are told that they have to get something on their CV, so they're just willing to go anywhere for the 6 months, get it on the CV, and then leave, where for me an apprentice brings so much more to the table. I mean, I've been luckier probably than most, but my experience of hiring apprentices has been nothing but enjoyable and fruitful for both of us. A win-win situation, totally.
Yeah, fantastic. So now how many apprentices do you have in the business, and what roles are they in?
We've got 3 actually on the course at sort of varying stages. We've got one that's finished the course, and we've got another one starting after Christmas. The 3 current ones, they're all doing the business and admin apprenticeship. The one that's coming after Christmas is actually going to be doing the PMO, which is the performance manufacturing operative. So he or she will work in the studio and will be more actually on the creative side of things. Yeah. The 3 that are in the business and apprenticeship, they work in all areas of the business. So you might get them doing orders and dispatch for a month or 2, whilst maybe the other one's doing the phone and customer services. Then they'll swap, and then they just work through every stage of the company. And so that probably takes them about 8-9 months. And then at the end of that, I try and put them on in an area that they enjoy most, because I'm a great believer that people work best where they enjoy it most. So you might get some that just love the telephone, and so she's going to sound the best on the telephone, whereas another one might just love all the figures and the counting and spreadsheets and things. So she will end up doing that. But I do insist that they work in the full sort of journey of the order, so that they have an understanding and a sympathy towards all areas of it. I also try and get them out of the office. I try and put them on the odd course. I send them up to London to go on a trade fair, and always make sure that they have a list of what I need to know when they come back. So I might say, you know, did you see a lot of wood up there, or would glass be very popular? Was there this, was there that, what were the competitors doing, and et cetera, et cetera. And so they have a good time, but they always have, you know, an itinerary to follow. And also, with an 18, 19-year-old, it's amazing how perceptive they are. And, you know, they see things from a total different angle than I would. So, you know, they're really, really useful on that. And
So
I'm
when you're...
trying to get my notes. Oh, sorry, the last apprentice, I do have to say, is actually just been promoted to our office manager. And when I tell people that I've got a 19-year-old running the office, they think I'm mad. And then they just bowled over.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess people are coming to you and they're quite green. And so what do you look for in terms of an apprentice for your business? What skills do you identify?
Probably the singularly most important attribute I look for in any employee, actually, let alone an apprentice, is attitude. I think you can teach most people most things within reason, but they've got to have the attitude. They have to want to be there and not be doing it for their parents or simply because that's another thing. Just because they didn't get into uni, you know, you don't want that. You want someone that wants to be there and have the right attitude. I'd be really lucky so far with the applicants that we've had. They've had a good attitude, but on the job spec, I make it quite clear what we're looking for, so I guess that sifts through quite a bit. Yeah,
yeah. One of the questions one of the concerns that came through when we did the poll around what you find are your main hurdles was the management time. So, and that relates to the next question I got, is how much time does it take you, do you think, to support apprentices when they come into the business?
I personally don't find them sort of any, I mean, maybe I'm a bit of a sort of frustrated mentor or coach, but I don't think they take any longer than an employee, and I actually find they're so enthusiastic, they so want to be there. I mean, they're on way less than minimum wage, although we do sort of bonuses that are target driven and stuff. So they really do need to be there, so they're hungry for information, and they're an absolute joy to teach. I mean, the moment they walk through the door in the morning, they're learning and being supported. We have a very open business here. We have the figures on the wall. Everyone knows exactly what we're doing each month. And I find that they all take a huge ownership in trying to get to the target. So we get to say, a week before the end of the month, we put our heads together and say, okay, guys, what can we do to reach our target? And they'll say, oh, well, we'll do a mail out. Oh, let's do a competition. Oh, let's do this. So it's a very cohesive approach we have to the business. So no, I never go in the morning and think, right, I've got to do 2 hours teaching today. It's just a naturally occurring thing that happens the whole time. And the older the apprentices that have been there longer teach the newer ones because they buddy up for the first month, so they sort of follow them around and stuff.
And do the more mature apprentices enjoy that? Do they like new people coming into the team? Do they feel threatened by it, or do they think, great, someone else to get involved?
Yes, oh yes, they're very much, I mean, when we do the interview, the first thing I do is the job spec is quite detailed, so we do tend to sift out quite a few. Then I telephone interview them, and then if that goes well, we get a face-to-face interview. And then after I've interviewed him or her, the other apprentices come in, and they don't interview them as such, but they go in, and it's a great opportunity for the applicant to actually talk quite candidly to the other apprentices that are here and say, you know, what is the old bat actually like, type thing. And it's also for the other apprentices think, oh, will he or she fit into the team? Because we're small, there's only 10 of us here, although there's sort of 35 around the Christmas sort of month. But so it's important that we all get on, plus the fact it's on in the grounds of the house, of my house. We all eat in the kitchen. We have dogs, and then we have puppies and chickens, and so it's a very family atmosphere. So we do have to get along. That doesn't mean that everyone has to be a clone of one another. In fact, that's what we don't want. But we do have to sort of work as a family, so to speak.
Okay. And how would you say that having apprentices has shaped the way your business has grown? Do you think your business has grown in a way that has been unexpected because of taking on apprentices?
I think that's in the figures themselves. We took the first one on in 2012, and last year we had a 53% growth. I mean, okay, some of that is due to some fantastic, fast-moving new products that we designed, but an awful lot of it's due to the apprentices. It really is. I mean, hand on heart, I can really say that. I mean, as an example, last night, well, I was probably the second one to go at 10 o'clock, and there were still 6 of them here, and they were apprentices. And I didn't ask them. I mean, I'm always saying, go home, but because sort of ownership they take of their part of the business, you know, they want to stay. They really do. So they've, it's been nothing but a positive experience. I mean, last week we did Spirit of Christmas in London, and I took the apprentice who finished her course, in fact, the newly promoted office manager, with me to work on the stand. And the amount of people who came up to me and just said, oh, where do you get staff from? They're so professional and knowledgeable. And then when I told them how she came to be with us, you know, a lot of people said, what, an apprentice? And I'm thinking, you know, people just don't understand what apprentices are anymore. In the old days, you know, it was, plumbers and electricians or people that couldn't get into university. All the kids that I've got here could well get into university, but they've chosen to do the apprentice route. And I think that's probably the biggest barrier at the moment is people have to take a fresh look at apprentices because they are fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
And so what would you say to the businesses that are on the line today that are considering taking on an apprentice and haven't quite taken that leap? What would be your top tip and words?
You've got to do it for the right reason. If you want, I mean, I know I get really passionate about this, but if you want cheap labour, if you're going to replace them every time they finish their course with another one, then I implore you not to take them on. I really do. You'll both be losers in this. The apprentice will lose out because they'll have given you a year, 18 months of their time at a hugely reduced rate. And then if you just discard them and repeat the whole process, you're not doing them any favours, and you're not doing us any favours either, because I find when they've been here, they do everything our way, and when you ever going to have an employee that you get in sort of through the normal recruitment methods that is just going to be totally and utterly trained by you and the way sort of, you know, our company does things. So from that standpoint, I think they'll be hugely missing out. And if you look at them as part of the team, that you could then grow them, nurture them the way you want to be, it's just nothing but positive experience. And they can't run your office within a week or so, but they do bring this sort of infectious enthusiasm, pair of eyes, and no baggage. Keep going on about there's no baggage. It really is very, very refreshing when they first join.
Well, that's wonderful. Thanks so much, Jane, for sharing that with us. And I think, you know, there seems to be so much to learn from your business, not just the fact that you've taken on apprentices, but the way in which you've done it and managed to make people feel so much ownership of the business. And it seems that that is the kind of the secret ingredient, really, that you've managed to make people feel really part of its growth. So I think it's a real inspiration to businesses. I'm aware of the fact that we've already gone a bit over our time, so I wonder whether it might be a good idea now to hand over to Imogen. Are you there, Imogen? Can you hear us?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Sophie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi. Shall I just give a quick overview about what Cockpit Arts does as a business?
Yeah.
And then I'll talk a bit about the apprenticeship and internship scheme that we're running.
Yeah, and I see already lots of commonalities in what, you know, the discussion we had the other day around how apprentices are benefiting the businesses that you work with, and what Jane's covered there today, which is a really fantastic example of how apprentices have worked in her business. Yes, lots of inspiration so far. So yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree a lot with what said. Just a quick overview about our business. Cockpit Arts is a designer maker business incubator, and we have 165 micro businesses. We felt passionate about helping support our studio holders through the process of taking on their first employee, and CC Skills Creative Employment Programme has been a huge support in helping us achieve this, mainly through the wage subsidies for interns and apprentices. As well as employers receiving wage subsidies, we're providing intensive wraparound support for the employers housed with us, and this includes payroll advice, legal advice, and leadership and management training, as well as in-house support and coaching. Because we found a big barrier to employment was doing quite a lot of those basic things like setting up PAYE or putting a contract in place. On this programme, we've taken a consortium approach, which means our studio holders are either taking on someone full-time or sharing someone between two businesses. And by the end of the programme, we hope to have employed 14 young people between 22 craft businesses. To date, we've been running the programme successfully for a year and created 8 new positions, and these are a mixture of internships and apprenticeships. Shall I talk a bit about what learning we've learnt from the programme so far?
Yes, that would be really useful, thank you.
So what we've learnt so far is that the employers are looking for candidates who are job ready. So I'd agree with what Jane said, is that they're looking to create sustainable employment in their businesses. And the issue we've found with internships is because they're usually 6 months, but actually when they come to an end, there's not been enough change in sales or productivity for the designer maker to keep them on full time. And we're hoping to address this in the programme we run next year by working closely with our local college, Westminster Kingsway, to develop a programme of traineeships that will then lead onto a 12-month apprenticeship. The traineeship up a 5-week study in college to learn useful job-ready skills, such as social media for business and learning basic office skills, and then a placement with the designer maker in the studio. This way the young person in the business has an opportunity to know if they're ready to sign up for the 12-month apprenticeship, and a kind of try before you buy scheme. And we're then going to help facilitate a cohort of apprentices to work closely with our design makers over the next 12 months. So that's what we've learned from our first year of running it, and then how we're hoping to develop it for the year after.
Mm-hmm. And so when businesses in your, could you just repeat how many businesses that you have in the housed in the kind of cockpit arts incubation sector?
So we've got 165 businesses across 2 sites, but out of this, 22 of the businesses are signing up for the employment programme that we're currently running. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lot of the businesses employ full-time members of staff anyway, but what we're trying to do is change the culture of unpaid internships and also welcome apprenticeships back into craft.
Yeah. So do you think it's a trend that's been happening recently? So, you know, people, it's sort of kind of a recent thing, a bit of resurgence in the whole idea of apprenticeships, and businesses are getting a bit more switched on to it now?
Absolutely, but I'd say that it's a slow process, so it needs kind of several years of building and ingraining into the culture, because I think at the moment there is a big culture shift happening, but that will take time.
Yeah, yeah. And just in terms of the apprenticeships versus kind of internships, so are businesses now thinking, well, internships are all very well, but what do I do after that time, which is what Jane was talking about, you know, what happens after that point? And so businesses are thinking apprenticeships are a more sustainable solution, are they?
Absolutely. At the moment, people are taking on internships for 6 months, but they have realised that actually when the 6 months are over, there hasn't been enough of a change in the business for them to then take them on as a full-time employee without the wage. Whereas this ship is a different way of approaching that, because obviously it's initially a 12-month agreement. We also hope that by the end of the 12 months they've made a big enough act by either creating sales or saving new time so you can create sales. There's the possibility for ongoing employment, because like Jane said, that you don't want to be taking a new apprentice every 12 months and kind of retraining them. What you'd ideally like to do is to grow and take on more apprentices as the business grows.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when we talked the other day, you said that at the moment no businesses were sharing an apprentice, because that seemed to be quite a big ask of an apprentice coming in to the craft sector and having to kind of balance their time between 2 businesses. But I guess that might be something that could work potentially in the future, or at least is that businesses can share best practice when it comes to taking on an apprentice. So
absolutely, a lot of our studio holders do peer learning, so they do kind of get together and talk to each other, and there's definitely some practices that have grown throughout that kind of learning experience. The issue we'd have is if two employers were going to share an apprentice, is because they're kind of less job ready, the two employers would have to liaise would have to liaise really well together so that they can make sure that they're giving a very singular approach to how they manage that person.
Mm-hmm. I guess one thing employers can do at the moment is if they want to take on an apprentice in their specific niche of craft, you know, through Apprenticemakers and through organisations like Popular Arts, they can find similar businesses and ask how they've done it, find out who their training providers were and how that worked for them, and so they can just get a sense of how it would work in their business, and it would kind of fast track the process, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's lots of learning that is being shared on how the process works. The one piece of advice I'd give to anyone who's looking to take on an apprentice, the thing you can do is set aside a small amount of time each week to sit down and have a meeting with them one-to-one to get them to kind of give you feedback about how it's going, because your apprenticeship will go so easily if you've got clear communication and you know what to expect of each other.
Yeah, good advice. Great. Okay, I think if it's okay, thanks very much, Imogen, for your contribution. I think if people have got questions for Jane or Imogen, they can just send them over to me, where we can ask them at the end. I think we'll hand over to Daniel. Are you there, Daniel?
I am, hello.
Hey, hello. I feel like
can you hear me okay?
Scores in the Eurovision Song Contest a bit, but yes, I can hear you clearly. Now we're going to do something slightly different. I'm going to hand over completely to Daniel so that we can see Daniel's got a short presentation just to talk us through some of the funding that's available around craft apprenticeship. So are you ready for it, Daniel? Yeah.
Let me just put that up on my screen. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes. Yes, we can. So are you okay just to introduce yourself as well so people understand?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Sophie. So I'm Daniel Williams and I work in our Creative Employment Programme team at Creative and Cultural Skills. And so I'm just going to go through a little bit of context around kind of where apprenticeships fit into the creative sector, and talk a little bit about creative and cultural skills, what we do to try and support apprenticeships and the sector to develop as a whole. And also to talk about some of the grant funding that we can distribute and that's available, kind of mainstream grant funding that's available to small businesses to support the wage costs of their apprenticeships, which can be difficult to support as you're a growing business. So Creative and Cultural Skills is a charity that was set up in 2004. So we're just coming up to our 10-year anniversary, which is great. And we're also something called a Sector Skills Council, which means that we have a mission to try and support the economic growth of the creative industries. And we do that by trying to provide people with the right skills and opportunities they need to find employment in the sector. The creative sector is made up of a vast majority of small and medium-sized enterprises, but actually 94% are under 10 members of staff. So we know that focusing on small businesses is really key in our sector, and that they have unique challenges around kind of developing their workforce. But actually, as a sector, our workforce is growing by far more than the rest of the economy. We're expecting by 2020 to have increased the number of people in this sector, the number of job opportunities available, by about a third, and that's compared to 6% in the rest of the UK economy. So that actually makes us the fastest growing industry. So it's a really exciting opportunity to look at the routes into this industry and how young people actually access careers in this industry. What's also interesting is that we know that employers aren't necessarily satisfied with the current system and the way that young people are coming into their workforce, and about 40% of creative businesses actually tell us that they're suffering from skill gaps, and these are skill gaps in areas, as we've heard from Jane and from Imogen, in areas such as marketing, business development, digital management. It's not necessarily those creative roles. The education system is actually producing people who are equipped with the skills to do those creative roles, but it's the business side of things that as a sector we're really not getting the skills in. So we have three strands really to our work. I think it's really important that right at the beginning young people know about the careers options available in the sector that are kind of behind the scenes and things that they don't necessarily get taught about in the education system. So we have a website called Creative Choices, which has over 2 million visitors. Under that we list job opportunities, training, but really what we try and do is get industry voices onto that website so that if young people aren't necessarily learning about these options in school and in college, they're able to come here and learn from the horse's mouth about the kind of opportunities available in the sector. Second part of our work really is around paid internships and apprenticeships. We really want to try and change the culture of unpaid internships, try and change that to paid internships. There's the kind of social element to that, but it's also an element that actually there is a national minimum wage legislation in this country, and we need to ensure that employers are aware of that and aren't contravening it. But as we're talking about apprenticeships, we think that the growth of the apprenticeships is crucial to the long-term growth of the sector. And since 2008 we've actually been developing bespoke frameworks, so the qualifications that the young people are taking for the sector, because it's not just about engineering and plumbing as Jane said, and we need to make sure there's creative frameworks to take in this industry. So we've supported over 3,500 apprentices now in the sector, so we're really pleased with that, and we want it to be a mainstream option for young people coming into the creative industries. And then lastly, what we do is also try and support employers to have access to the best kind of tools and training so that they're aware of how they can develop their workforce and link in with colleges and universities. So the way that we actually kind of deliver this work is through, and this is a network of creative businesses that anybody can join. So if you're interested, come and look at our website afterwards and you can join in with our network. What we're really trying to do with the network is hook up businesses with education providers so that the training that is received by students is industry relevant, and they're only going to be able to deliver industry relevant training, you know, if businesses are working with the education system. So these are some of our education partners that we work with right across the country. We work with universities, schools, studio schools, FE colleges, and we really want to grow this network so that these institutions are leaders in the field of creative education. And one of the big things I wanted to flag up today was something that Imogen's already mentioned, and this is our Creative Employment Programme. So this is an initiative that was set up by the Arts Council in 2013, and it's aiming to create 6,500 jobs for unemployed young people in the cultural sector. And they've put £15 million of lottery funding into this pot, which is to distribute to employers in the cultural sector who want to create apprenticeships, internships, paid internships and traineeships. And it's running until the end of March 2016, so there's plenty of time still to get involved. And just wanted to quickly go through, because I know we've not got a huge amount of time, but I'll just quickly go through some of the grants that are available because it could be useful information. So on the left-hand top bubble, you've got £1,500 to £2,000, which you can apply for directly to CC Skills, to us, for this Arts Council grant to support an apprenticeship. So that's if you're working in one of the Arts Council supported art forms, so contemporary craft, you can apply to us to create an opportunity. If you just come to the right, the top right bubble, there's also £1,500 which is available from the National Apprenticeship Service, which is any business can access if they're under 50 members of staff from next year and not had an apprentice in the last 12 months. So if you're new to apprenticeships and a small business, you can actually match those two and you'll be on £3,000 towards the wage costs already. There's also some regional funds which are available, which you can see underneath. So in London there's something called the City Bridge Trust Fund, which is to support arts apprenticeships. And there's also many regional jobs funds, which your local authority can tell you about. A lot of, you know, places like Nottingham, Manchester, Bristol have got funds that are available to support apprenticeships in their cities. So it's worth having a look and seeing if that's available. as we, as I said, we design some of the qualifications that young people can take. So Jane spoke about some of her apprentices are taking business administration as their qualification, as their apprenticeship qualification. We can actually deliver the apprenticeship training element as the business as well. So we can come out and work with anybody who's interested in creating apprenticeships, and we offer training in these particular frameworks. So we do business administration, customer service, but we also do some of the creative frameworks as well. So they're there on the slide, you can see. And that's it. So our details are there on the slide. If you want to come and visit the website or email us directly to have a chat about what grants might be available to your business or how we might be able to support you. I think that the Small Business Guide to Taking on an Apprentice that Sophie flagged up earlier is a fantastic resource, and you know, we've got a lot of resources on our website as well around to think about structuring an apprenticeship, and so do come and have a look and do come and make contact and have a chat with us. We'd be really pleased to talk to people.
Great, thanks Daniel, and I think that creates a really good starting point for businesses that are approaching this for the first time. So they go onto CCS Skills, and then they'll be able to be connected with you or one of your team that helps them connect with a training provider that would be right for them. Is that right?
That's right, yeah, we can connect with the training providers, so all of those people I listed earlier, we can offer the training directly, and we can also help you access the grants that are available, either the government grant or our Creative Employment grant through the Arts Council.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's probably worth mentioning to people that you don't have to, you might have someone in your team at the moment that you think would be good to put on an apprenticeship, much like Jane did, where you think, well, actually it would be great to be able to train this individual as an apprentice. And that's fine. You don't have to have someone new that's coming through the scheme. You can have someone you know, or it can be, or the schemes can sometimes help you find someone. So training organisations might be able to help bring someone into your business as well. So there's different ways to approach it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, for some of the grants, there's you know, eligibility criteria about the apprenticeships being new, but I think you're totally right that it doesn't always necessarily need to be a new person. They might have a young person they're already working with. So, yeah.
Great. Now, a question has come in that I think is really relevant for you, Daniel. I know we're running out of time, but I'll just quickly ask it. We've started 4 apprenticeships as a pilot through the Livery Company Skills Council. Is the Trailblazer scheme replacing it? If so, how and when, and what do we do? That's a big question, isn't it?
Oh, that is a tricky question, and Tracy might be able to feed in on this as well. So I don't think the Trailblazer is intending to replace it, but I didn't go into the Trailblazer today because it's something that's happening in the craft sector at the moment around the way that the apprenticeships are reforming. The government's reforming apprenticeships, so they're actually more delivered by the industry rather than the education providers. So, I mean, the livery company actually delivering their apprenticeship is kind of industry-led. So, I mean, I don't feel that I can say whether it's going to replace it. I don't think there's an intention for that. But perhaps Tracy might have a view on this as well.
Well, that's a good connection as well, because we're going to hand over to Tracy now. Sorry we've left you with such a good time, Tracy. Hopefully, if you're able to whiz through, we can still take a couple of questions at the end. Do you want to hand back over to me, Daniel? Let's just see. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. There we are. So handing over to
Okay, good morning. Right. My intention is to whiz through some very early sort of bits around our activity here at Crafts Council. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Crafts Council, for those that aren't aware, is the national development agency for contemporary craft in England, but actually works beyond that remit as well. I lead on a programme called Injection, which is for mid-career and established makers working within contemporary craft. And the idea around the programme is to look at those businesses and support their growth ambition part of the scheme has been to introduce a very particular element around becoming a confident employer. This has come about really from our pilot scheme last year, where we recognised that in order for small and micro businesses to grow, quite often they had capacity issues and the need to actually employ. And there are issues around the risk of employment through cost and confidence in actually being able to put together a work programme, a work brief to support that employment. Hence, we've developed this new 5-day workshop programme with the Creative Society, who again work nationally to support apprenticeships, internships across all sorts of creative sectors. So really I've sort of popping in today to share really some of the issues that have come out, which are around those fears of again, cost of employment, but also the softer skills around how do I work with somebody who might want to sort of look at my IP or want to sort of, well, potentially could impact on my brand or values. So really I'm here for questions and support any of those makers that are looking for that development.
Okay. And so in terms of the programme that you offer, so it's that is recruiting an apprentice for the first time, is it? Or if they've already taken on apprentices?
At the moment it's the vast majority of people that are undertaking are not currently working with apprenticeships. They may have employed either on a freelance basis or have worked with interns previously, but this is about setting up beyond apprenticeships in many ways. So it looks at all aspects of employment to ensure that we're getting the very best sort of practice in place across all of those areas.
Okay, fantastic. And so how does that link with the work that Daniel's doing? If businesses get in contact with Daniel's team, can they also access this as well? Do they use it alongside, or is it different?
In terms of some of the areas we cover within the Becoming a Confident Employer, looking at opportunities to access funding to enable you to take on apprenticeships or paid internships. Obviously there's some fantastic information available within the detail of Daniel's work as well to support that. We can also signpost people, makers, to places that can provide them additional support, or where they can, for instance, take on loans in order to be able to grow their businesses. So there's a wide range of routes we can take to support makers in developing their business practice.
And so their first step, if they thought, okay, this is the stage I'm at, would be to contact the Craft Council. Is there a clear place to go to? And should they get in contact with you or your team?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we have a very good website at Crafts Council where you can actually identify whether you're a maker or an educator, and it will take you through to all of our schemes and programs, but also opportunities listings and contacts with other partners and links. In addition, you could email directly to our makerdev at craftscouncil.org.uk email address, and we respond rapidly to sort of questions and queries.
Okay, brilliant. I think because it's quite tricky for everybody to have taken all the links and useful contacts from today's session, what I'll do is I'll try and collate it into a follow-up email to be able to send to people afterwards, so that people have got all the links and all the sources of information that they need. In terms of the question that came in around trailblazers, have you got anything to add on that, Tracy? Should businesses be clued up with what's going on with trailblazers, or should they not worry about it and just, let people like the Craft Council and the creative and cultural skills people work that out and present that to businesses as changes come in place?
Well, I believe there are over 31 businesses and organisations involved in developing the Craft Trailblazer. I understand it's something that will be developed further as we move towards the spring, and it has enabled a new framework to be set around what you could incorporate into an apprenticeship, and been hugely supported across the craft sector, so that's contemporary and heritage craft. So really I would follow the links. I'm not an expert in this area at all, so I'd follow the links. Certainly Crafts Council has information on their website, but there are many other sort of entrances into finding out further information there.
Okay, fantastic. So as suspected and as foreseen, we did run over time slightly, but I'm just going to ask one question, and it's primarily for Jane, I think. Are you still with us, Jane?
Oh yes, yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you. Just one question that's come in around PR, especially I've gone to the skills show today, and I'm expecting to meet lots of businesses and young people interested in apprenticeships there, and because of the awards, it highlights to me the importance of PR. And so this question came in, and I was just curious to know what you thought. Do you think that you've gained a lot of PR and profile for your business through taking on apprentices, and has that helped boost the business itself? Is that something that businesses should consider when they're taking on apprentices? Is how can I raise the profile of my business by doing this?
Oh, that's a bit harsh, I think.
In a good way. So should
yes, it has. But I'm, you know, as you can probably sort of get, I'm quite a vociferous person. I mean, I've been up to number 10 on the back of the apprenticeships because, you know, I feel so passionate about it. I would never say to do that as a reason or you know, to gain PR. I never ever dreamt of when we hired one that it would help the business in any way, but it's something I have embraced. And I think it's got a good, ethical British feel to it, and that has helped our business because we're very much into British-made things. Yeah. So from that standpoint, yes, it has, I suppose.
Oh, I think I worded that strangely, but I think the point was: is it a good opportunity for businesses to you know, to enter awards and get involved in that kind of thing, and really sort of shout about their staff and say what a good job people have done, really. Because going to the Apprenticeship Awards tomorrow night is going to be interesting, and seeing how businesses are celebrating the success that apprenticeships can bring to businesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, from that standpoint, yes, definitely, absolutely, no, totally.
For businesses to bring a new you know, opportunity into their business in that sense is what I mean. Okay, fantastic. And so in terms of all the speakers today, I'd like to really thank you for your time. It's really valued. I know that the businesses that have tuned in will find lots of interest from today's speakers. So thank you so much for your time, and I will be posting this webinar on the Apprenticemakers site after we finished, and hopefully emailing everyone in the next couple of days to let them know that it's live. And thanks again. Thanks everybody for your time.